So I'm going on to Neil Degrasse Tyson's podcast, okay? And this is how I think that it would play out. So I show up and Neil says to me, well, I've looked a little bit at your videos and it seems to me like you're pretty wild in your takes, almost. Yeah, well, I kind of think that there's really only one truth, and that is that sometimes we have to agree. What do you mean by that? Well, I mean that realism itself, I think, is just the idea that there is a space between the idea of control and the lack of it. Could you further explain? Well, yeah, I mean, everybody likes to say what the point of life is, or at least try to guess, but I think the further or the closer you get to the point, I think that the point actually becomes more objectionable. Well, what do you mean by objectionable? Well, it's like talking about the beginning of things. I think that ultimately it just renders everything as potentialities. Just as if we get to the place where things are further away from the point, ultimately we get to the idea of the truth is being able to change something, to make something work, in essence, take advantage of the environment. And that, in essence, is just, again, the idea that everything is potential. Everything has the potential to be everything. So what you're saying is that there really is no real truth the closer you get to the truth. Well, mostly, yeah. But, just like with all things, I think that we have to deal with our own personalities as much as we have to deal with the personalities of other things. And I think there comes a point in time when the idea of multiplicity is either rendered to the idea of 1, 0, or a combination of any amount of metrics involved, which again is just the idea of either believing in yourself or believing in the world. Because at some point in time, you'll reach that potential if you believe in yourself enough. But at the same point in time, if you believe in the world enough, then the world will reach that potential as well. And I think that what that says is that the truth is just as much a feeling as it is ultimately a hard fact. And in fact, I do believe that truth itself is more so like a buffer between close and far, rather than being the say-all, end-all of what really is.
How much does something small affect the world? The ability to say that life has a direction or is to move in every direction, basically staying still, saying that the closest point to being real is actually being able to let go. Then everything goes. And then you say, what is fate? What is free will? Well, maybe if we can find actually what's really still. If we can say that we can go all the way back to the past, as far back as anything could last, any memory, any particle, particularly, saying that it's the last thing that can see, then in the debate of free will over everything just being still, is no more than just taking the will. You don't think anything can move anywhere or do anything? Why don't you just say that you're living in the past? The idea that everything stands still and goes nowhere. Well, I'll tell you what. Maybe you can always be there, especially if you believe that there is no future. Then what is the future if it's anything but what we're sure of? Well, maybe you just need to go one step further into the past and see where everything comes from. Maybe it's just belief. If you get down to the idea that all things breathe, that the solidity of something, in fact, makes it altruistic work. The idea that work is like putty. The system of properties and mathematics that make something true no matter what. Then, at that point in time, we can say that the past is what? And then in some sense, maybe you can see that moving forward is really the only direction we can move in. Are you afraid to move? Are you stuck? Well, maybe it's time that you actually try to prove. Prove that you have moved. Prove that you have willpower. Otherwise, you'll always be stuck living in the past. But just know that the future lays before you one step in any direction. Waiting like chance. Like making a decision. Like saying that you are eternal. And that you are cognizant of being able to say that you are profound, that you are stable, that there's something about you that is unchanging, the raw nature of feeling. And once you reduce it down to the idea of feeling, it's so personal that, again, there's really only one person you have to prove it to. Yourself.
Or maybe, if you know how it all moves, it only proves one thing. That it all ends up being the same thing. You. And the more you work to prove that it's something else, someone else, the more you just prove this.